After suffering from illness for 5 years, the last remaining spark of life in Hirako was extinguished, and his soul departed to an unknown place. At that time, the young man encountered an elderly man tinged with yellow who spoke to him, saying that he was the cause of his illness, indeed the primary reason for his death, and thus wished to apologize to him, and take him to another world, where any wish he desired could be fulfilled as an expression of his apology. Throughout his life, Hirako had only one wish: to live on a farm far from the city's noise, and to have his own family. Therefore, the elderly man decided to grant Hirako the legendary farming tool that would assist him in everything he desired. After that, the young man opened his eyes to find himself in a forest on the surface of the earth, feeling overjoyed because he finally possessed a healthy body. He couldn't believe his eyes when he took out the legendary farming tool given to him by the elderly man, and he was amazed by its ability to transform into any shape he imagined. Holding on to it, he never felt tired. He began Hirako by searching for a place to settle within the forest, where he found a giant tree and a distinctive marker that easily identified the location. When he reached the tree, at the peak of excitement, and after determining the residence site, he had to search for a way to fetch water to focus his senses on identifying its source. However, all the sounds around him were just trees. The river was too far away, so he decided to use a digging tool to bring water. Since he didn't feel tired while carrying the tool, he continued digging tirelessly until he finally found water. He couldn't believe his eyes out of joy because he would drink his own water. After obtaining the water, Hirako decided to clean the rest of the area to expand the space where he would live. Once he finished cleaning, he found a tree in the middle of the area that bothered him. Thanks to his experience from the previous world, he decided to split it slightly to the right and left, then cut it down using his farming tool until the tree broke with a single strike. The tool's capability was not limited to just felling the tree. It also helped him easily chop the wood, as if peeling and cutting it. He gathered the planks and prepared them until he built himself a house. That day ended before sunset, leaving the young man in a state of panic, as he had not yet lit a fire and did not know where to sleep amidst endless confusion. Therefore, he dug into the tree to find a place to stay, continuing to carve the wood to form cups and some other tools until dawn. The first thing he did in the morning was to light a fire, because he did not want to forget it, as had happened in previous days. After that, he continued cleaning the area and cutting trees until he felt hungry and did not know what to eat. Suddenly, a wild rabbit attacked him, so he killed it using a farming tool, then cooked it and they ate from it. Only the pigeons remained, so he prepared them and set up barriers for them. Hirako continued his work on the land while thinking about the vegetables he would grow, whether potatoes, onions, or something else. He created his first field on the other side of the area and pondered what to plant, but by the end of the night, he discovered that he had no seeds at all and that he needed to obtain them to plant. So he postponed the task of obtaining them until the next day. In the morning, the young man was surprised to find that the fields he had planted the day before had begun to sprout, considering this as proof that the legendary farming tool also performed the task of germination. However, another trench had to be dug to protect the seeds from rabbits. He dug around the farm and killed some rabbits that tried to approach, then used his tool to water the plants. Hirako wondered to himself what those seeds would grow into, thinking that if they were weeds, he wouldn't be able to bear it. The days passed quickly, and Hirako began building a new house for himself. Everything was going well until one day he heard a noise outside the house. He went out to look and found two extremely exhausted dogs, seemingly on the verge of death. Without hesitation, Hirako picked up some wood and brought them inside to tend to their wounds. He gave them some meat from a pig he had hunted to eat. Later, he noticed another dog with a swollen belly, apparently a pregnant female. After eating, her belly began to hurt severely, and it was clear that the puppies were coming. The young man didn't know what to do, so he took the dogs to his house to rest, lit a fire in front of them for warmth, then returned to the tree to sleep, as the unlucky one is said to do. The next day, Hirako checked on the dogs and found they had given birth to 4 puppies. He rejoiced with joy and brought them a piece of meat to celebrate the mother's well-being. The days passed happily. The puppies grew and thrived, and Hirako continued building his second house. Meanwhile, the seeds began to sprout, and he was overjoyed when he turned his tool into scissors to harvest tomatoes. Then he realized everything. He had imagined those scenes in his mind while planting, and thanks to the tool in his hand, everything bloomed faster than any other crop. It was the tool known as the legendary farming tool. And so, Hirako's first month in the forest came to an end. Though exhaustion was evident on him, he was at the peak of happiness. His life continued steadily, and he learned many lessons during this time, like how to prevent potatoes from spoiling by burying them in the soil longer. And he also discovered the secrets of tree growth and their life cycles. Then he went outside his residence to plant some fruit trees for sweetness, and life was smiling at him as he played with the dogs he had raised. Everything was fine until winter arrived, and he began to think about how to cope with it. He imagined making a jacket from rabbit skins, but it didn't work out due to the foul smell, so he wondered what his true purpose was. Meanwhile, something called zabuton, appeared. A mythical spider who knew how to weave fabrics. The dogs had brought it along, and Hirako was overjoyed. The spider made some clothes, jackets, and heating items for him, easing his heart, and the winter passed peacefully. While Hirako sat inside sheltering from the cold, he often felt he missed someone to talk to and share his achievements with, so he pleaded with God to bless him with someone to live happily with. A few days later, the dogs found a small puppy in the forest. They took care of it and cried over it. Hirako always turned to help the girl, but she attacked him. She began to suck a little of his blood, and her appearance changed as she grew. Hirako didn't understand what was happening or the reason behind it, so the dogs had to hit her until she ran out of energy and returned to her small size again. Hirako approached her and asked, "Are you an enemy or not?" The girl apologized, saying, "I'm sorry, I was just passing by," and tried to joke around with the dogs a little, but they hit me, as you saw. Then, in another situation, she offered to suck more of his blood to alleviate her condition and grow. Since Hirako had a healthy body unaffected by the blood, it had no impact on him. By the way, that girl was a vampire, and her name was Meera. After that, Hirako took Meera inside his place, and the girl was astonished. "What are these plants? I've never seen them before. I can't believe my eyes." Then Hirako cut a piece of tomato for her to taste, and it melted into her smile. They spent the day together, with Meera wandering around the garden discovering and recording the plants. As the day ended, Hirako saw her sitting alone, and remembered he was no longer by himself. He approached her and started talking. The girl told him everything, saying she was fleeing the city out of fear from soldiers chasing her. She thanked him for taking care of her the previous day and explained, "I won't burden you. I'll leave tomorrow, so don't be angry." Her words filled him with deep sadness, so he drew near and said, "I don't want to let you go. I want you to stay with me." Raising a cup from his hand, he told her, "I have a request that might seem a bit heavy, but I hope you'll live with me. I don't want to be alone anymore." At that moment, she said to him, "But there are people chasing me, and you might get hurt because of my presence." Hirako replied, "I don't mind. I'll protect you. But I've been used to this solitary life for a long time, and I don't wish to remain alone." The girl replied, "But I am a vampire and you are human." Hirako said to her with a smile, "No problem. I will always take care of you and love you forever." Meera was so happy upon hearing these words that her face turned red, saying, "We agree. We will get married starting today." What a wonderful beginning. The next day, Hirako woke up excited and headed to his farm to work with great energy, his joy indescribable. Meera showed her affection with her bright greetings, elegant as the full moon. Then he said to her, "You are the first human in our village, and your odd number is 30. The girl smiled and said, "What a beautiful 30. They continued working on the farm, and everything was going perfectly. The following day, while everyone was working quietly on the farm, suddenly the alarm bell rang, and Hirako rushed out to look outside. There, he saw another girl tied up by dogs, just like what had happened to Meera before. Hirako was delighted and freed her, then asked, "Who are you, and why have you come here?" The girl introduced herself saying, "My name is Tia, and I am a descendant of the heavens. I came searching for a specific person." She added, "That person was trying to escape, but I saw him in a state of great comfort, so I seized him by force." Then the dogs attacked her again, injuring her on the head. Hirako calmed the situation and took her to his house, making her sit in front of Meera to tell him all the details and reveal the reason for her search for that person. Tia said to him, "Meera blew up one of the kingdom's palaces while conducting some experiment, which is why everyone is chasing her." Meera interrupted, saying, "That was because of a nobleman who kept bothering me to make medicine for him. When I got fed up with his harassment, I blew up his palace, so I came here." Tia asked in surprise, "And what about that thing beside you? Why is it here?" Meera's face turned red as she said, "This is my husband, and I will live here with him." Hirako was so delighted by these words that she felt life had become sweeter and more beautiful than ever before. Then, to ease Meera's embarrassment, she stood up and approached Tia, saying, "What do you think about living here with us? The place is spacious and vast, with everything we need, plus fruits you won't find anywhere else." Since Tia didn't fully understand the conversation, Meera took her on a tour around the farm, introducing her to all the plants and crops, as well as the villagers. Meanwhile, Hirako taught Tia how to chop the cabbage he was serving her, and Tia was overjoyed. He also had her try strawberries for dessert, and it didn't take long before she decided to stay. The next day, Tia noticed the descendants of the magical dogs and discovered the large size of their family, as well as seeing the spider and its offspring who kept multiplying. Because of this, Tia told Hirako that she would go find someone for him. When she left the farm and returned after several days, she brought back a group of 1,000 individuals whose appearance seemed to instantly uplift the spirit. Tia explained to him, they used to live in a village in the north, but the wars that broke out between them and the demons destroyed their village, leaving them homeless and wandering the world until now, with no one to take them in. Tia said to him, "Please, let us live here." Hirako listened to everyone and agreed to their request. The girls began integrating into the village and contributed to the development of agriculture and industry, eventually creating unique dishes. After a few days, these 1,000 individuals harvested their first wheat, and the village announced they would make bread. Hirako was amazed by this news, as he hadn't tasted bread since arriving in this world. The next day, Zabuton captured the queen bee and brought her to Hirako with the intent to torture her, but Hirako calmed her down saying, "Don't leave her like this, Lady Spider. Let's keep her until she brings us some honey instead of killing her pointlessly." Zabuton agreed with his words. Hirako created a place for the beehive, filling the surroundings with beauty and freshness. Then he began digging a permanent well in the village, as their numbers had grown, and the existing well could no longer provide enough water. With the help of 1,000 companions around him, he decided to use the legendary farming tool to compact the soil into a specific shape, then dug and arranged the shapes side by side until they reached the river. "A clever idea," he said. "What a wonderful design, my son." Afterward, everyone rejoiced as water reached the reservoir, and everything was well. Some wild, predatory fish appeared, but Hirako took care of them, then proceeded to grill them. The girls stood amazed at what he was doing, as they initially didn't want to eat it, but after tasting the food he prepared, they loved it, and finished every bit of what was in front of them. Hirako then decided to cultivate rice. He began by digging a dedicated seedling bed, filling it with water from the new reservoir he had built. He took the seedlings and distributed them to the girls in neat rows, with everyone gathered together, working as one. After some time, the rice grew, and Hirako harvested it, leaving it to dry slightly to reduce moisture. It was then collected, threshed, and milled, making the rice ready. Hirako could hardly contain his joy at the sight of the girls, who stood famished while waiting. He told them, "Just wait a little longer, the food is ready," as he fired up the stove and placed the rice inside. He prepared rice balls and handed them out to the girls. One of them hesitated at first, but ended up trying it and was delighted by the flavor. Stuffed with meat, it was delicious, yet simple. And after all that, life in the village continued. And after they finished farming one time, Hirako saw the girls cleaning themselves with magic after a hard day's work, and he felt sad that he couldn't use it like them. So he set his mind on building a large bathhouse and began designing it, allocating a space for the pool, a place for soap basins and faucets, and so on. The construction was going well, except for the drainage problem that remained to be solved, as the water flowing out of the bathhouse couldn't be allowed to return to the river. For this reason, they decided to bring in small, simple slime creatures that purify the water of any impurities. After several days, more girls from among the 1,000 joined the village, increasing their numbers as they got to know each other and shared their stories. Meanwhile, the largest dog was watching Hirako as he observed the girls growing up around him and began telling them his story, how he met Hirako and arrived here. To avoid being entangled with him, he asked to be called Kiro. Kiro was no ordinary dog. He was one of the most dangerous in the forest. From a young age, he ruled over the woods, and no one dared to challenge him. One day, Kiro encountered females of his kind, winning the heart of one of them and earning her affection in battle. They married, and his wife bore a child, making life seem peaceful. But little did he know what awaited him. A giant combat-class bear appeared, wreaking havoc and striking them down. Miraculously, Kiro escaped, carrying his wife with him until they reached the heart of the forest, where they encountered no dangerous beasts, but instead found a simple man wandering among the trees without hiding, proof that this human was still alive. And when Kiro saw that, he felt an energy emanating from Hiraku's tool and concluded that the man was alive because of it. After that, Hiraku treated the man's wound, and then Kiro's wife was born. From that moment on, Kiro Hiraku considered him his leader and agreed to follow his orders in everything. Initially, he was an ordinary person hesitant to take steps, but now, seeing the village expand day by day, the girls realized that their leader was no ordinary person. He seemed to joke with matters in an impressive way. After a while, Alf built a large house for Hiroko, as their previous home had become too cramped for their needs. The old house was spacious, beautiful, and equipped with everything imaginable inside. Hiroko entered the house and explored it, finally feeling triumphant. To celebrate the new home, Hiroko decided to prepare a new dish, the famous Japanese curry. He began gathering the ingredients one by one, first cumin, then coriander, and other spices, and hunted some magical rabbits for meat. He also enlisted one of the girls to help light the stove and carefully placed the ingredients in front of her to assist in keeping track. He stirred the ingredients one after another, then covered the pot to let the curry simmer. He also prepared some baked goods to freshen the cooking aroma, and soon the smell of food spread throughout the place until everyone stood holding their stomachs from hunger. Finally, Hiroko finished preparing the food and distributed it to the girls. The first bite was even more delicious than he had imagined. They ate until the plates were empty, while Hiroko only took a single bite. After celebrating the house, the food, and all those joys, Hiroko noticed that winter had invaded the village, so he began preparing for it and organizing his affairs. He stored firewood in the basement of the house, prepared a place to store vegetables and fruits, and also brought heavy blankets from Zabuton. Everything was in the best condition. As the happy days passed, spring arrived, and Hiroko went out for a stroll with the girls to enjoy the fresh air. Suddenly, they heard an alarm bell. A giant dragon-like monster appeared and attacked them. The girls were terrified, while Hirako seemed stunned, wondering how to react. The dragon struck with a fiery blow that shattered their defenses in an instant and burned part of the crops. Hirako rushed forward amidst the panic, thinking, how can I save them without losing everything we've achieved? But he steadied himself and declared, I won't give up. I won't let anyone get hurt. At that moment, the farming tool in his hand transformed into a spear, and he attacked the dragon with all his might, despite the barriers the dragon had erected for defense. No matter how hard the dragon tried to defend, its defenses gradually crumbled until it received a decisive blow that led to its defeat. Under the impact of that devastating blow, the dragon seemed to collapse, and the girls rushed toward its location in awe of their own power, while Hirako headed to the battlefield, ensuring the houses were safe and unharmed. After calming everyone down, Hirako said, it's possible we might be attacked again. The girls replied that such attacks were rare, as dragons are creatures difficult to control. Hirako joked in response, if that's the case, let's make tomorrow a feast where we dine on dragon meat. Spread throughout the house. The next day, as Hirako gathered ripe grapes to make juice and offer it to the girls as assistants, overwhelming joy filled the place. The village was given a chance to celebrate and line up activities. Meera's sister joined in a reassuring visit to check on them, admiring every detail of the village, its food, and everything it had to offer. Later, the girl went out accompanied by her servants and her sister's servants, declaring, we've decided to live with you. We'll provide 2 cows for milk production and ensure you never miss out on delicious food. Meanwhile, Tia raised her voice, insisting that things be left to her for a while until she could return to organize her affairs. Some of the guards and a few lizard men who had helped with the work joined in, and they were accompanied by a number of companions until the village grew and its features changed. That same night, Hirako gathered everyone and announced the need to choose a name for their new village. Many names were suggested, but none pleased anyone until Zabuton said, open the windows, Hirako. When he did, he was able to glimpse inspiration and declared, we shall name our village the Village of the Great Tree, for it is the foundation upon which all our affairs are built. Everyone agreed on the name, and great joy prevailed, accompanied by a lively celebration where they drank juice and exchanged congratulations. The next day, Zabuton decided to sound the alarm once more, so the guards brought in someone who had attempted to visit the Great Tree Village. This person was an envoy from the Demon Kingdom, coming to negotiate with Hirako about the taxes imposed on the land, as he carried a welcoming gift with him. Hirako proposed a deal to the envoy, suggesting that the taxes be only 10% of the annual harvest, an offer that surprised the envoy, but was quickly accepted with the words, well, 10% is the best offer. Both parties signed the contract in agreement, while Hirako seemed astonished by the deal, feeling it might serve as an inference that the Demon Kingdom recognized him as a sovereign state. In case of any attack, this kingdom would stand by his side, something that outweighed the value of the mentioned 10%. After the contract was finalized, everyone celebrated a successful deal, and it turned out that things had gone well, bringing even more joy to the village. On the other hand, the envoy of the Demon Kingdom sat with his advisors, discussing what he had witnessed there, saying, I was in an extremely terrifying situation. This village is not as the stories tell, but far more dangerous. I met the vampire maiden, Meera, who left the Sky Clan behind, and Tia. Not only that, but I saw soldiers from all corners, countless beasts and wolves, to the point where you couldn't possibly live among them. I was offered a horrifying deal for just 10%, and I couldn't help but agree immediately. They also gave me a gift which I brought with me. We must know the Demon King. On the other side, the person called Rondon was sitting on his throne, utterly terrified by what he had heard. He said, I can't bear this. I will resign. The word indicated that this man would resign from time to time. The next day, the Great Tree Village welcomed its second guest, the Dragon King himself, who came to greet them bringing a sword as a gift to mark the beginning of their acquaintance, symbolizing their partnership as neighbors. As everyone gathered in the village to sip the juice they had prepared, the king appeared extremely pleased with its quality, so much so that his mood completely changed and he no longer wished to leave the village. And Hirako also presented him with a bag of gifts as he departed from the village. By the way, the mentioned dragon was called Drain. However, after all those events, Hirako felt sorrowful about one thing. Our village was disorganized in welcoming guests, which led him to consider building a guest house. So Hirako explained the requirements to the daughters of the village in order to organize guest reception, and began dividing the villagers according to how they should handle visitors. Zabuton was given a bell, so that if someone was seen approaching, the bell would ring, and if the visitor was an enemy, an alarm would be sounded. The next day, the first guests arrived at the village. Some merchants had come to establish fair trade between themselves and the Great Tree Village, a place whose news had spread throughout the Demon Kingdom. Although the welcome they received was less warm than that given to the Dragon King and other distinguished guests, the girls still greeted them despite their discomfort at the number of followers hiding in the forest, which led to some embarrassment upon discovery. They were then received at the guest house, where the maids carefully arranged everything for them. While everyone was in high spirits, a trade agreement was signed between the village and theirs. They agreed to exchange materials. On their side, they had aluminum and Teflon, and on our side, as it was said, they brought 20 girls from the animal fairness side to help prosper the village, along with sending 3 young children. At the conclusion, Hiraku addressed everyone, whispering to himself, "Grow up quickly, for the future of the village now rests in your hands." The next day, the village atmosphere was calm and peaceful, until one of the guards came running to Hiraku, terrified, reporting that 2 dangerous beasts were fighting deep in the forest, and if their conflict continued, it would head towards our village. Hiraku replied sarcastically, "2 beasts. Let's go see what's going on." The girl led him to their location, and immediately, Hiraku transformed his farming tool into a powerful weapon and ordered the girl, "Charge at them." Suddenly, with 2 decisive strikes, he knocked them to the ground. After that, to gather and prepare them for cooking, he brought them back into the village, where he made a delicious meal from them that everyone loved thanks to his special touches. Although Hirako was really craving mayonnaise to dip with the food, so he went to Meera's little sister and asked her for the necessary ingredients. She brought out everything he needed and told him how to get the rest of the supplies. After some time had passed, Hirako managed to prepare the mayonnaise and mix it with the meat. Meanwhile, as Hirako was sitting with the dwarves who had come from the preparer's side, they heard that the village had an indescribably delicious juice, grape juice. So everyone turned to Hirako to inquire about this juice. And Hirako wanted to offer some juice to the guests as a welcome. But the girls refused, saying, "We don't have anything to give for free. We'll offer you our service, which will make you drink juice 100 times better than what you have." Indeed, Hirako and the girls became very excited about this idea. And when they tasted the quality of what the village produced, they decided to join in and celebrate it. By the end of the day, everything concluded with great happiness. As for the Dragon King, he continued to visit the village occasionally to sample their beverages, while his servant would take him back as if he were in a sorrowful state. The next day, Hirako sensed an imminent danger approaching the village, as a massive dragon appeared to enter, with no good intentions. Quickly, Hirako prepared himself and drew his weapon, and at a critical moment, the dragon stopped him skillfully. Then, a white dragon emerged behind them, even more ferocious, and with no good intentions. Again, Hirako drew his weapon and launched another strike that managed to bring down the dragon, while Drame's servant tried to stop him, saying, "Calm down, it's just a misunderstanding." Chaos escalated in those moments, as this dragon family consisted of his wife and daughter. The father fled at night believing his wife was unfaithful, so they were on their way to take revenge on her. But when they realized the truth and what Drame had been doing, they offered apologies to Hirako for all the noise they had made, so Hirako left them and went on his way. The mother said out of the corner of her eye, if it weren't for Zabuton grabbing and pulling her before the weapon reached her, she would be dead now. To avoid the dominance of excessive force, they decided to accompany the village in a certain way. In the mother's gaze, she was thinking of having her daughter join the village to get closer to them and bond with Hirako, but things don't always go as planned. Indeed, Hirako agreed to incorporate her into the village, but that girl was not suited for agricultural work. Her strength was too great to allow her to be a true farmer. Instead, she should take on hospitality duties. Therefore, Hirako appointed her as the head of guest reception, as she possessed great wisdom and eloquence in speech, along with the ability to manage and direct work during times of hardship. The first customer the girl dealt with was an envoy from the Demon Kingdom, who came to request additional apples, as they had become popular among the kingdom's inhabitants. When he saw him, his face turned blue and he said, "Agreed. If you don't want to hand me anything, I'm fine with it, even if it's through the boot." The girl took all the necessary items and explained the details to him. Then the envoy went to his advisors to tell them about what he had seen, saying, "You won't believe what I witnessed. I saw a dragon, and I don't know how he joined them or when it happened, but I'm sure that even if we gathered all the kingdom's forces, we wouldn't be able to confront him." When Randon heard these words, he was very confused and said, "Enough is enough. I've resigned again. Come on, this is the 3rd time I've quit." The next day, the envoy met a girl who told him everything she had seen. He asked her to live in the tree village to study the nature and origins of their power. The girl agreed, and traveled to the village of the tree to uncover its details. She met a young woman named Lassi at the village entrance. When the girl saw Lassi, she felt terrified at first, but this was just the beginning. Then the girl entered the village, and one of the guardians came to take Lassi to discuss matters outside the village boundaries. Thus, the girl was left alone to wander the village, recording everything she saw and taking notes on its details. The girl sits and thinks, saying, "All that's left is the mayor, who, according to them, is strong, but I haven't seen him yet." At that moment, Hirako passed by and spoke to her, but the girl kept calling him just an ordinary farmer, without responding or expressing herself. Suddenly, Lassi told her that the girl was surprised by the presence of a weak human here, so Lassi smiled and said, "This is the one who would have destroyed me and my mother on the first day we saw him. He is the village mayor, so be careful when dealing with him." At that moment, The girl realized the extent of her misjudgment and was plunged into utter terror, deciding to respect herself and join the village. And with every encounter with Hirako, she would tremble and speak in a voice flickering with tears, her face revealing everything without softening. The next day, Hirako found one of the slime creatures, as the monster had drunk all the juice in the village without leaving a drop. The girls got angry and began demanding punishment, so he approached them saying, "All right, I'll punish him." They understood that the punishment would be severe, and how I wish I could tell you how he punished him. While Hirako was eating his meal, he said with a smile, "Ah, I really miss seafood." When the girls heard this, they were surprised and said, "You still know how to cook?" He replied, "I only remember the ingredients, and let's see where we can get them." She smiled Lassi and said, "Brother, we have a neighboring country on the border, located on a reliable fishing coast that provides abundant fish. All you need to do is tell me the ingredients, and I will bring them to you with precision." Hirako replied, "Very well." The girl then set off, accompanied by Sarah and one of the lizard men, on a journey that lasted 3 days. Lassi and Sarah returned laden with all the fish Hirako had requested. Not only that, but the city's chief merchant also came to discuss the trade agreement with Hirako. The man was confident, showcasing his status, and agreed with Hirako to become the official merchant of the village, providing anything needed at any time. Hirako gave the chief some goods from their people. Afterward, Lassi went again to escort the chief to receive more goods. The chief was overjoyed, not only because he had struck a successful deal, but also because he had returned to his life after days spent in a state of isolation and danger. One morning, while the president was sitting securely in his office, a guard came to inform him that there were outsiders who wished to meet him. The president replied, "Man, who do you think I've been waiting for like this? Go ahead and give them what they need." As the president was on his way to meet the visitor, he felt a shiver run through his body. It later turned out that the visitor was Sarah, the daughter of the minister of the Kingdom of Devils. She had come to witness the goods in the village and to obtain some of those products. The president presented some goods before them and negotiated with them regarding prices and details. The discussion concluded with a fruitful agreement, where the visitor confirmed that he would bring everything required. The president ordered, "Go and bring all the fish from the sea, and don't forget to also bring what is needed to clean the fish. As for the rest of your goods, my daughters, I am at your service." While Sarah was speaking with the president, one of the girls cried out with agitated breaths, and Hirako went out with the group to see what was the matter. There, he encountered a dragon standing in front of the village, waiting to strike in the morning, as if the dragon still refused to speak, but instead glared at him with those hostile looks. Hirako was furious, so he quickly grabbed his weapon and hurled it toward the dragon. The weapon struck the ground before the dragon could react, as everyone was surprised to see that the person standing behind the dragon turned out to be Lassi's aunt, Dream's sister, who had come to test the strength of the man she was to marry. It was believed that she would wed him in the household. Hirako argued with his aunt, saying, "Do you mean to marry Lassi?" Dream replied, "Brother, I wasn't joking. You told me everything before, and you also said you wanted to marry her, Mayor. You're not alone." Dream added, "I was just drunk back then, so she told me like that. Let it go." Hirako responded, "All right." Then everyone entered the house to welcome the aunt, who was drinking as if she were a sister to Lassi, and she apologized to them for some of her family's foolish behavior. Meanwhile, in the Kingdom of Demons, the Demon King himself learned that all the dragons had gathered in the tree village. He was astonished and very worried about the situation that threatened his sovereignty, so he began convening with his 3 ministers, even though their numbers had dwindled, perhaps due to the ongoing resignation of Randen. After a while, Aunt Lassi began working as a teacher, establishing a school to teach the village children reading and writing, adding a new teacher to the village's ranks. Meanwhile, the Demon King's daughter decided to think that Sarah had been kidnapped in the tree village. She chose to rescue her and brought along 3 assistants and 300 knights, setting out with them the next day to attack the village. While Sarah's father was lenient and let things take their course, the minister couldn't bear it and went to Sarah to inform her of everything that had happened, saying, "Princess Flora has decided to attack the village tomorrow, as she believes Sarah has been kidnapped and has come to rescue you." Sarah was shocked by these words, saying, "What are you saying? Am I kidnapped, or what? If you think so, then minister, you must act decisively." The minister replied, "Don't worry, leave it to me." The knights who were accompanying Flora emerged from the forest the next day and were about to set foot in the place when they were suddenly confronted by a group of monsters that immobilized them, leaving the knights with no way to move. Flora and the girls surrendered and returned to the village. Hirako, who was wandering around at the time, didn't realize who these people were or why they had come here until Sarah intervened, saying, "Don't worry, uncle. I'll handle them. They're my followers." Hirako agreed to her words and went about his business, while Sarah took the girls aside and gave them a brief explanation about life here, clarifying that Flora was not not kidnapped, but was here of her own free will. She assured them that the result of attacking the village would be continued work there until someone decided enough was enough. The girls responded calmly, "We'll do whatever you ask of us." As events unfolded, Flora seemed puzzled by Sarah's behavior. She sat talking to her, saying she had been very worried about her, and that's why she came to visit her here, to check on her and show her how beautiful life in this village is. Flora regretted her earlier thoughts of attacking this place, so Sarah tried to calm her down by saying, "No one would even think of attacking this place, and anyone who behaves like that is practically committing suicide." Then Sarah invited them to join the rest of the villagers, and they walked around the village in peace and tranquility. After 3 days had passed, Flora decided to return home. She bid farewell to Sarah, saying, "I will come back to visit you all whenever I can." The girls who were with her had fallen in love with the village and wanted to stay there forever enchanted by its charm. Amidst those events, the Demon King learned that Flora had been staying at the house of the village chief of Tree Village, and signs of fatigue and exhaustion appeared on him. He thought the village chief was very strange. Meanwhile, Meera seemed exhausted in one of the rooms in the presence of everyone, showing unusual tiredness and weariness. One of the girls asked her, "Do you feel drawn to citrus fruits?" Meera replied, "Yes, whenever I smell citrus, I feel like I want to return to it, and I want to eat a lot of food without getting full." The girl exclaimed, "Congratulations, you're pregnant." Astonishment spread among everyone upon hearing this, as no one had expected such joyful news. Days passed, and the village's harvest appeared abundant, as they gathered a plentiful crop. A large portion of it was divided among Draim and the dragons, while Aunt Lassi decided to take her share from the parents. The dragons took everything without exception. Then everyone headed out to deliver the harvest, and after a while, Aunt Lassi returned laden with some mountain elves, bringing them to the village. These were not men, but all girls. Hirako, the loving father, welcomed them, and they entered the village. The atmosphere was wonderful and filled with joy, as the villagers learned pottery and utensil making, enriching their craftsmanship. As days went by, everyone noticed that Meera began to show signs of fatigue and exhaustion, as her belly gradually swelled. Hirako, who was like a father to all of them, repeatedly approached her to ask about her condition and wish her recovery, hoping to be a honey father to them all. To ensure everyone remembered their hardships and felt united in purpose, Hirako decided they would not drink juice as long as Meera was pregnant, since she normally abstained from it despite the villagers' pride in their juice. It was suggested that they let the juice ferment longer to alter its taste and improve its quality, which impressed everyone. Later, Hirako welcomed the idea and let them proceed. After a few days, the three dwarves were found sitting aside, displeased because their juice was no longer being consumed as before. Hirako asked them what mistake they had made to cause this. The dwarves laughed in response, and Hirako explained what needed to be done. They all smiled and returned to work with renewed vigor. As the days passed, the time came for Meera to give birth to her son. Restless with pain in her room and unable to move, Hirako went to her side to comfort her. All the villagers joined him, bringing gifts. Despite the immense pain she was in, Meera expressed her overwhelming happiness, as that day was one of the happiest of her life. At the end of the day, her room was filled with gifts, and Meera was overwhelmed with happiness despite the pain, as she knew the time for childbirth had come. Hirako rushed to inform everyone and called people together to help Meera. In the midst of his confusion, Hirako went outside the tree as he had done on the first day of his arrival, looking up at the sky and praying to God for his wife's safety. This was an expression of the true love that united them, for after marriage, they were no longer just two individuals, but two souls in one body. Hirako celebrated the birth of his little son, whom he named Fierdo, and joy filled the place. Everyone was happy with this good news. After that, Hirako continued to live his life full of happiness with his beautiful family, and the world remained as it was, beautiful and stable forever. And so the events of this work come to an end, which is not characterized by excitement, wars, or violence, but is a quiet work that refreshes the soul and delights the viewer. If you liked this work, don't forget to leave a comment, like, and subscribe for more works. Goodbye.